Hey, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show. It's Vikings Bears week. Well, the Gophers have a bye week, so we'll let them take a rest. But while the Gophers rest, there's something the Vikings can learn from the Gophers. We'll talk about that with Courtney Cronin as well, coming up today on the Ron Johnson Show. Stay tuned.
On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. One-of-a-kind opinions, big-name guests, the teams you care about every day. It's the Ron Johnson Show, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Ron Johnson Show, and I'm your host, Ron Johnson, on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast Network. On today's show, well, like I said, the Gophers are resting, so we're going to stick to the Vikings today. But the Vikings can learn a little bit from what the Gophers just went through this past week. Also coming up on the show, we got ESPN insider Courtney Cronin, formerly covered the Vikings, now covering the Bears. So she has a lot of insight on both sides. But before we jump into the first topic of the day, you can now find Locked On Sports Minnesota on Amazon Fire and Roku. Download the Locked On Sports Minnesota app to get all your favorite shows. Well, as I bring my producer in, Sam Ekstrom. Sam, it's simple. Hey. Very simple. Very simple. Pay the tees off early. The Gophers took Purdue for granted, but also in lieu of injury, they did not have a plan. So what can the Vikings learn from the Gophers? Well, everybody's picking the Vikings to win this one. Everybody's saying the Vikings should be 4-1 heading to go play the Miami Dolphins in Miami. But what can the Vikings do wrong? Well, one, they can overlook the Bears, a downtrodden team, a team that has no identity. It used to be defense. Well, Khalil Mack is gone. It used to be, you know what? They got Allen Robinson, so be careful with this pass game. He's gone. It used to be just, it's Chicago. They're a scary team. That's gone. What do the Bears do? Good? Not a lot. Nothing really. And so the Vikings cannot overlook them. And then I bring up in lieu of injury. When you think about some of the hampered players, the injured players, the Dalvin Cook shoulder, all that, have a plan. Have a plan for if he's not going to go or how much he's going to go. Here's the plan to run the ball. If somebody else comes up hobbled, have a plan. I know the NFL is always the next man up mentality, but sometimes you overlook how important it is planning for that specific person if they're not going to go in the game on Sunday. I think Mo Ibrahim being out for the Gophers was a huge loss. We did not know how huge until we saw the run game of the Gophers just did not have it. Mo is a guy that falls forward. Mo is a guy that hits the hole and takes what the defense gives him. You look at Trey Potts, you look at Bryce Williams, definitely good backs, but different. Trey Potts looks like he's always trying to bounce one and break one, whereas Mo's just going to take every little inch and yard and build himself a 140-yard game. The pass game couldn't get going for the Gophers because they couldn't get the run going. And so that's where I lead into with this Vikings team. And Sam, the question you kind of came up with and you posed to me was, where is this team at? Is this the same team as last year, offensive and defensively, or is this a different team? Defensively, the jury's still out. I can't really weigh in defensively because it's too early of a sample size to really see where they are. I think these next 2 weeks will kind of give us an answer, but then the Cardinals game versus Kyler Murray, that's where I want to see where this team is. The Dolphins game is going to give us a little bit of inkling as well. I don't know if the Bears can, but if they do lose to the Bears or they have like the Bears come out and torch them, probably can't say the same old defense, same old lackadaisical, not up for the moment, overlooking your opponent. You know, it's there for the taking, and you don't want to take it defense. When you're looking from the offense, I definitely say it's different. I don't see a panic. I don't see a force the issue. I see a team that's always like, you know what? At some point, we always can strike. You know, it feels like the Cobra. You know, they're like a Cobra waiting to strike. Not to bring up Cobra Kai on Netflix, but it feels like that. You know, it feels like they're always ready to pounce. They're always in a position to make a big play and make a big drive and score. It always feels like, you know what, when he has to come up with a play, he has that play dialed up and ready. You look at the Rams right now. The Rams offense looks horrible. Like, it just does not look like they're – I don't know if maybe Odell Beckham being out and gone is part of it. They did get to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. But 20 targets to Cooper Kupp, I just don't see it. So when I see the Vikings come up with ways to find the ball for other guys other than just Jefferson, I feel like Kevin O'Connell has it figured out. But Sam, that's my question to you too. Like, where do you see this offense and defense so far 4 weeks in?
Yeah, what I see, and this is the most important difference of all, and I don't want to overlook it, is that the Vikings are winning games in the fourth quarter. That's easily the biggest key. That influences the record, and the record influences our perception. That influences the fans' perception. It gives the team confidence. It gives the team hope going forward. So that is critical. Statistically, I don't see a lot of overperformance in this offense. I don't think Kirk Cousins is having a spectacular start. Justin Jefferson is doing his thing. 2 great games, 2 average games. Adam Thielen's doing his thing. Dalvin Cook's banged up, been a little underwhelming. I think the offensive line has been really good. I would say that there is a shift in just the play selection. It's a pass to set up the run instead of a run to set up the pass. The Vikings are 6th in pass attempts, 24th in rushing attempts. That's a clear flip-flop from previous years. But I still need to see more. This is not a top 5 offense right now. This is a middle-of-the-pack offense. Defensively, credit them again. They're playing better in the second halves and toward the end of games than they did last year. Now, I don't know about the Saints game. Saints game got a little sloppy there at the end for the defense. But in general, I like what I've seen from that group when it counts. Still want to clean up those slow starts, and I think there is a lot to clean up on both sides of the ball. But when you have a coach that you can rally around, someone who the players seem to want to play for, that does matter. And Kirk Cousins is coming up big in big moments when it matters. So I think there's plenty of good to build on, Ron, and I want to see more evolution of this offense and defense, and hopefully this is just the start and that there's an ascension that goes on as the season progresses.
Yeah, we'll get Courtney Cronin's thoughts coming up next on the NFC North. When you look at it as it stands, if I'm just going record and how the NFL does it, head-to-head, blah, blah, points for, points against, Vikings, Packers, Bears, Lions. If I were to just close my eyes, look at both rosters, kind of look at the situations they're in, I kind of would change it. I would go Packers, Vikings. Even though the Lions are 1-3, I want to put the Lions in front of the Bears. I think the Lions are a better team. I think the Lions have played tougher teams than what the Bears have. I think that's a big part of it. The Bears haven't won a game on the road. They've won both at home. The Lions have found a way to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Or snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. I don't even know which one it is, but they find a way to lose when they have the game in hand. And so I don't know what to say. This, my friends always say it, like the Vikings or the Lions find a way to just lose a game they shouldn't lose. They're winning, and somehow they snatch victory. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but they just find a way to lose. I just feel like the Packers right now, in my opinion, still feels like a better team. I think their defense is better. The first game, if we throw that out the window and then we say, okay, take the Vikings, Packers out, they didn't play each other, where would you say? I think people would say Packers and Vikings. But again, end of the year, they're going to have to play each other again. There's a lot more football left in this season. But it's tough. But I think the Lions are a better team than the Bears. We'll see what Courtney Cronin thinks coming up next on the Ron Johnson Show in the Hang of Ron Johnson segment. But remember, Locked On Sports Minnesota gives you endless Vikings talk with local experts. Get your daily 30-minute dose of sports with Carol Evans, sports anchor Reggie Wilson, going back and forth with his co-host Luke Inman. It's fast, it's fun, it's superior sports talk, your daily Minnesota sports show. And before we do that as well, we have a word from our sponsors.
BetOnline.net, it's your number one source for football betting info this season. Gophers lines, Vikings lines, all the college football and NFL lines that you can imagine. BetOnline.net. I'm peeking at it again. The Vikings are 7-point favorites against the Bears on Sunday, over-under at 44. I think that's a tick up from yesterday. We're keeping an eye on that and all the other NFL and college football lines at BetOnline.net. And there's plenty more, too. It's MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Well, Vikings fans, I'm bringing in a person that you guys remember, you loved, You miss her, Courtney Cronin, ESPN insider. I mean, since she's left Minnesota, though, she has like her trajectory is, I mean, I don't know. She's going to be hosting First Take soon. Courtney's been on every ESPN show. Every time I turn on ESPN, I see Courtney Cronin on there. I smile a little bit because I know where she started. I saw her work hard, and now it's starting to pay off. Courtney Cronin now back home with the Chicago Bears. Courtney, I want to thank you for joining me on the Ron Johnson Show. Let's jump into this first. How has that been so far? 4 weeks into the season, what's the big difference of like US Bank Stadium and then is what Soldier Field, I think, which they're about to move out to somewhere else. Who knows what they're going to do?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is the food in the press box. My gosh, I really do miss that omelet bar that we have pregame. And I know that Sam knows what I'm talking about, where there sometimes is a pregame meal, sometimes there's not a pregame meal. You're kind of in the corner of the end zone in the press box, not exactly the best vantage point. So I was spoiled having indoor football, and I have become a massive proponent that all games after the week 1 game, the deluge that I had to cover between the 49ers and the Bears, all games should be played indoors. And it should be played in stadiums that look like US Bank Stadium, that not only have the incredible environment, but the open air press box. So you can really feel what that environment's like. So I'm very excited to go back this week. I can't believe it's my first time back in Minnesota since I left at the end of February. And I'm just excited to see people.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, do you agree with her? Like, have you seen that stadium?
So I've covered games with Courtney at Soldier Field before. The spread pregame is a little lackluster. I think last year it was just like chips. It was like a snack bar. And then US Bank Stadium, the omelet bar, they had it before the Lions game. It's to die for. So just for you, Courtney, I hope the omelets make a return this Sunday. Get there nice and early, get a pastry, get an omelet, get some coffee, and be fun to see you this weekend.
We have to get them to do like a Courtney Cronin returns cake. I'm pretty sure somebody can, Lindsey Young or somebody. We have to get somebody to do that. But Courtney, other than the food, when you look at Justin Fields, so you were around one of the most hated NFL quarterbacks when it came to like how much he made versus output on the field, and now you see Justin Fields and the Bears offense. What's that quarterback like hatred transition been like?
It's different because Fields is at a much different part of his career than Kirk was when he got to Minnesota and what it was like for the 4 years that I covered him. Fields right now is in a situation 2 years in where you've got some of the fan base wanting to bail on him, having seen him through a 4-game sample size this year and obviously last year with a different staff and, a whole lot of ups and downs. His rookie season was the definition of a roller coaster, but you have somebody who is a different style of quarterback, much more athletic. His legs are, among his biggest gifts. And when he can and will stand in the pocket to make a throw, you see how good he can be. I mean, against the Giants, he had his best throw all season, which was a 56-yard dart to Darnell Mooney over the middle of the field. And he's shown you he can take very small steps to get to where you can say there's tangible progress. But I think right now there are a lot of panicked Bears fans who saw this franchise give up a first-round draft pick this year and other draft assets to be able to go get Justin Fields. And right now it doesn't look like, for the time being, it doesn't look like it's panning out. And certainly some of the very reasons that they're limited in the passing game is because of the limitations that this quarterback presents within what he can do on a daily and, play-by-play basis.
Yeah, and when you look at, so Ohio State has had some interesting quarterback, I guess, situations of NFL, like guys getting there, everybody thinks they're going to be what they should be, and then they don't do it. The next one up is C.J. Stroud. Do you think it's more of Ohio State versus the quarterbacks are really just that good?
That is a brilliant question that not a lot of people ask enough, Ron. And it's one that I've asked. I wrote a big profile on Justin Fields going into this season. And I remember talking with people at Ohio State, former teammates, about the burden that's on Justin Fields, because right now he's the only starting quarterback in the NFL who comes from Ohio State. You know, God rest his soul, with Dwayne Haskins passing away. He's the only, I believe, the only quarterback right now that sees consistent action. And we all know how Haskins' situation played out, you know, in Washington, and then, you know, what was expected from him in Pittsburgh. But Justin now carries that burden to be the one Ohio State quarterback that can pan out. And I think it really does speak to how being in a program first starts with recruiting. If you can recruit a team that's likely headed to the NFL to be playing Division I college football, they're going to look like the best team in college football by and large. They're going to look like they can steamroll opponents because you have such a talented group of five blocking for you. You have a great defense on the other side of things. And as you know better than anybody else, Ron, covered in college does not mean covered in the NFL. So being able to throw your receivers open in college, like, it's a lot more difficult to do that stuff in the NFL. And he was playing with a loaded team. I mean, think about how many guys from that group, you know, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jamison Williams was there with Fields for a time before he transferred to Alabama. That's an NFL team right there. That's 11 personnel NFL version. So I just think that a lot of his flaws within his game were covered up by the talent he was playing with. Now, you have to take a look then at what the Bears roster looks like and just how bleak. I mean, they don't have the talent to make up for some of the mistakes that get compounded by bad pass protection, by the quarterback's ability to get himself sacked. I mean, I'm a firm believer that not all sacks are on the offensive line, and we've seen that with Justin Fields because his fatal flaw in college was holding onto the ball too long, and he still does that from time to time. I was just looking up the numbers today where his average time to throw is well above league average. And this season, when a defense has had 0 pass rush wins, meaning they're not getting home, he's still been sacked 11 times, which leads the NFL in that category. So that's a considerable issue that you can pin more on the quarterback than you can, oh, the right tackle got beat on this play, or, you know, he feels pressure coming up the middle. All of those things exist, but at the college level, he was able to cover up for them if they were happening at all, a lot more easily than he can in the NFL.
Yeah, and so when you look at sacks, I mean, he's tied for second in the most sacks in the NFL. But this is the weird thing about it. I mean, Carson Wentz is up there, but then you also have Joe Burrow up there. And the Bengals, though, you wouldn't consider that a bad offense. When you look at Joe Burrow taking 16 sacks, but then Justin Fields taking 16 sacks, you're like, man, what are you doing? You guys suck. So when you look at Darnell Mooney, you look at Cole Kmet, how much of this goes on the coordinator and the head coach? I mean, you can't really put on Ryan Poles because I'm not going to put him in that. But how much of that goes on them? Not really, because everybody blamed the previous staff saying they're not getting Justin Fields ready. And now this new staff, it seems like much of the same. Or is it that the cupboards is bare? They don't have a lot of, like, they let Allen Robinson go, and they just don't have the talent to help Justin Fields out right now?
I think a lot of it's the latter, to be quite honest with you. Like, there are mistakes that happen and they don't have the talent or the experience to overcome it. Mooney's a great receiver, but let's be honest with this. He's probably a number 2 at best in another scheme, probably a number 3. He doesn't have top end speed. He just happens to be the most productive receiver coming off last season with the Bears, had a 1,000-yard receiving season, and through 4 games, it finally clicked a little bit more last week. 4 catches, 97 yards. I'm fairly sure that was his stat line that he finished with from the Giants game. But, you know, the majority of that was made up on that one play, that 56-yard pass that I referenced earlier. There are other moments, though, where Fields, like, he had him wide open for a touchdown. They ran 4 verts at the end of the second quarter, and Fields didn't see him. And I think that there's those sorts of things that your receivers can do their job. And maybe he could have bent inside a little bit more on that route, and not gone his vertical and gotten away from the safety a little quicker. I don't know. I'm just like trying to find poke holes in all of this, because it feels like Mooney's doing his job. Cole Kmet is a blocking tight end right now, but given the limitations of everybody elsewhere on the roster, he was supposed to be your top pass catching tight end. Now, if he goes to somebody else's offense, he's probably not that guy, because he's not a yak monster. Let's be real. Like there was a play on, and I think it kind of all goes like hand in hand with play calling. Sunday, there was a play at the end of the second quarter where it's 3rd and 15 from like inside the red zone because they got backed up because of a false start, and they throw a screen to Cole Kmet on 3rd and 15. Last I checked, he's not going to be somebody who's getting 15 yards off something like that. He's probably going down right at the spot where he catches the ball, which lo and behold is exactly what happens. So I think it's the limitations within their personnel, but these are the guys in this offense who are the top pass catching threats, at least in theory, for Justin Fields. It's just not happening yet, in spite of the fact that his wide receiver group is averaging the 5th most time of separation, yards on separation of any group in the NFL. So it's not like they're not getting open. Like it all goes hand in hand, which I think in a way is a good thing for the Bears, because it's not like you can solely blame everything on play calling or blame everything on your young quarterback or pass protection. But because of things that they didn't do, which is where I think you can bring Ryan Poles into this. The cupboard was so bare, Ron, when they first got here. They had to start from ground zero. Like they had let 25 players hit free agency. This wasn't a rebuild the way that they were doing it in Minnesota, where they already had pieces on this roster. They were starting from like below ground zero. So like all of that factors into what you're seeing right now. And I truly don't know how you can get a fair evaluation on Justin Fields following the season based on what he has around him and doesn't have around him this year.
Yeah, Courtney's dead on. Like with the Darnell Mooney, I agree. I think he is a wide receiver too. If you look at his numbers, game 1, 1 catch, game 2, 1 catch, game 3, 2 catches. And then the game she's talking about, 4 catches, 94 yards, but he still hasn't scored a touchdown. Equinemius St. Brown, he was really good with Aaron Rodgers. Now it's not clicking. So you can't blame St. Brown, because we know how good he was with the Packers. And so, yeah, maybe it's not the chicken or the egg. It's both. It's the play calling. It's the quarterback not understanding the read. Like you said, 4 verticals. If you don't identify where the safeties are, you don't know your target. But Courtney, Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, and Dalvin Cook have had a pretty decent start to this season. How does the Bears defense compete with that?
Well, they got to stop the run. They're not very good at that right now. They gave up a ton of rushing yards, not only to Saquon Barkley, but to Daniel Jones too. I mean, he had 68 rushing yards and 71 passing yards. Like he nearly had more than, clearly they weren't going to try to beat the Bears throwing the ball. So they did what they had to do. And they ran a lot of play action, a lot of bootlegs, and Daniel Jones is very good at selling a ball fake. And then Saquon Barkley carries the ball 31 times for 146 yards. Like, so that's it's not great numbers. And I remember talking to Eddie Jackson, Bears safety, about this afterwards, and he's been, a bright spot on this group. He's a veteran player. He's trying to rebound from a really tough 2 years he had. He's got 3 interceptions in 4 games, but like, it just seems so simple. Is it eye discipline? If you're biting on, I remember having a conversation with Anthony Barr about this in 2019, asking him, okay, you're a linebacker. What are you looking at when you're trying to figure out if it's a run or a pass, whether it's an RPO, whether it's play action, whether it's, bootleg, what are you looking at? And I'm like, do you need to teach your linebackers and then your young safety and Jaquan Brisker and young cornerback and Kyler Gordon and Kindle Vildor, who's a starting player this year out of necessity at cornerback because Jalen Johnson isn't playing right now. Like, do you need to teach them like just something as simple as eye discipline of like where to be looking? Because this doesn't get any easier for them. Like you go from playing Saquon Barkley, who's, I'll call him like he's a 3-down rusher. Like they don't really have anybody else that they use like as frequently and lean on as heavily in the run game as Saquon Barkley. Minnesota's a different animal, as we know, with Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison, and coming off of what they've seen the Bears do against Green Bay and Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, and then what happened this past weekend against Saquon Barkley. If I'm Ed Donatel, if I'm Kevin O'Connell and taking a look at like how I'm going to draw up this game plan, I'm like, probably going to lean pretty heavily on the run because they've shown that they can't stop it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Dalvin Cook, I know he's happy you said that. We'll make sure he hears that one. But because Dalvin Cook has not had a bunch of like top games yet. He hasn't had that 160-yard game yet. So maybe this is it. The Bears are giving up 183 yards on the ground per game. But coming up next, we got the Daily Three. Me, Courtney, and Sam. Sam's going to throw some questions at us. We got 3 minutes, and we're going to knock these questions out. But remember, check out the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast on YouTube following every Twins, Vikings, Wild, or Wolves game. Our Locked On team hosts are broadcasting live with team insiders. Never miss a podcast by subscribing to Locked On Sports Minnesota's YouTube channel. And we also have a word from our sponsors.
And if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you're depriving yourself of one of the greatest joys in life because they are so delicious, indulgent, cookie dough chunk puffs slathered in 100% real chocolate. Built has indeed done it again. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. And the best part, it's healthy for you. Only 160 calories and a whopping 15 grams of protein. So run to Built.com, snag a box for you and the family. It's the perfect treat. And if you want, you can hoard them all for yourself. It's Built Bar Puffs, covered in 100% real chocolate. And you can get them using the promo code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. That's promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off your order at Built.com. Get the new cookie dough chunk puffs today. All right, Courtney, let's rank the NFC North teams. I think there's probably a clear top two, probably a clear bottom two. No offense to the Bears. But where do you think they're going to shake out at the end of the season?
So if I'm predicting what the NFC North, you want me to predict the NFC North, like end
Order
of season,
finish.
what the finish. Aaron Rodgers the other day said that the way that they're winning is unsustainable. And I agree because they're putting so much on their defense. And this is clearly a run first team. So why not just like lean on that? I just don't understand like why that's so difficult for Green Bay, but maybe they'll get it figured out. I think my order of finish is probably very similar to what I had the last time I came on the show before the draft, that it'll probably be Packers, Vikings, Lions, Bears. I mean, there's a gap between the Lions right now and Chicago. That should show you the state that this Bears team is in. And the fact that they can score 45 points shows you that the Lions can do something, even with Jared Goff as their quarterback. They just got to figure out what they're doing on the defensive end.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a tough one for the end of the year. Did she give us our 4, though? Did you do your 4? Did you put it in order?
I just did 4. Yeah, I put it in
okay.
order. I said Packers, Vikings, Lions, Bears.
Okay. Oh, you put the Bears at the end. So this was crazy. After the first game, and I don't know why I did this, I actually put the Lions 2, but the Lions are going to find – I don't know. I just thought I thought Dan Campbell was going to get it going. Like, he impressed me. He made the players are playing hard for him. So I'm from Detroit. I want Detroit to be able to cheer for something. Like, I mean, Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey now with the Pistons, maybe your Indiana guy from Purdue, Jaden Ivey. So I was hoping, maybe he's going to help the Pistons. The Tigers can't get it going. I thought the Lions, but now after like what I see, I think, you know what? I think I like this unsustainable thing. I think the Vikings are going to find a way this offense. The defense is going to finally start to click. Ed Donatel's going to get it together. I'm going to go Vikings, Packers, but I think really close. I think it's going to come down to that last game and then Lions, Bears. I kind of agree with that on that order. But I think at the end of the year, that last 2 games, Bears, Vikings, Packers is going to really matter. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Packers are going to run away with this. But I think it's going to really matter at the end. Finally, I think Kevin O'Connell, you look at how the Rams are struggling. Maybe Kevin O'Connell was the quarterback whisperer. Maybe he was the one keeping Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff calm because Kirk Cousins seems calm. He seems like he's leading. He seems like he's willing. Like he gets to the line of scrimmage with 30 seconds to go on the play clock. I've never seen Kirk Cousins do that under anybody's offense where he gets to the line of scrimmage, not 2-minute offense, just normal day, 30 seconds to go. He's at the line of scrimmage already, and he's doing a bunch of stuff. He's not Peyton Manning. He's not that good yet. He's not like his acting sucks. but he's at least is trying to motion guys, shift guys. You see him looking at the linebacker, looking over at Kevin O'Connell. You see him pointing to Jefferson, motioning guy. I'm like, damn, Kirk Cousins is really doing this. So I think as he gets better and get more confident, I think the Vikings can take over the Packers.
I feel like, Courtney, you're back on Around the Horn in the final segment, and I'm Reale, and I get to give the point out to whose argument I like. I think the Vikings are also winning a little unsustainably right now, so I would actually lean toward the quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, who's won 13 games each of the last 3 years. So I give Courtney the point for the argument as we go into question number 2. I want you to think ahead 2 years, 2024. How many NFC North teams have different quarterbacks in 2 years? Courtney, we'll start with you.
Green Bay will have a new quarterback in 2 years. Detroit will have a new quarterback in 2 years. It's hard for me right now to predict on Justin Fields because you're going to have an incomplete product. I think he gets one more year of an evaluation, but by that point, if it's not working, then I'll say I'll go ahead and say 4 because, Kirk's on a 1-year deal, right? And he has a no trade clause within this. So figuring out where he goes beyond this year, he's not taking any discounts. So do the Vikings want to continue signing up for that? Or do they want to, depending on how they finish? If Ron has them winning the division, that means that they're probably not drafting very high to go get a quarterback. So you'd end up locking yourself into more years of Kirk Cousins. So let me revise my answer. Kirk Cousins will be the only quarterback. And I'm just basing this on if Justin Fields, if what we see right now is a true indication of who he is, that they would end up moving on by 2024. So I guess, wow. Yeah, I'm saying Kirk Cousins is the only quarterback in the NFC North, currently playing, that will still be there in 2024.
And I agree with that. I think Kirk Cousins is the only one. The only way Kirk Cousins moves on, and this is where the rubber's going to meet the road, is if he's not willing to take a pay cut so they can pay Justin Jefferson $180 million. Justin Jefferson is going to want to break the bank. He deserves it. Cooper Kupp, I took a friendly deal, I guess you want to call it, with the Rams. But I think Justin Jefferson is going to require, and Adam Thielen's going to be towards the end, so he should not need any more money. If you want to keep KJ Osborne and Justin Jefferson, I think, but who knows? Jalen Reagor might show you that, hey, I was a first-round pick. I'm worth the money. Keep me with this group. Maybe Jalen Reagor becomes a guy, but Kirk Cousins is going to have to take a pay cut. If not, I can see Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell reaching out to Jimmy Garoppolo because he's going to probably be looking for a new place to go. It's some quarterback. I don't know about the draft, though. I'm looking at the college kids. I don't see a lot of college kids right now. Aiden O'Connell at Purdue, to me, I think he's very hit or miss. I think he's offensive based. He reminds me of Kyle Orton out of Purdue. Really good, sustainable NFL guy, can start some games for you. I don't know if he's Drew Brees, though, out of Purdue. But he is the lead in the nation right now, or he was. I don't know. I haven't looked at it since the Gopher game, but I don't know. I don't know. And Courtney's right. I don't feel like the Vikings are ever going to tank enough to have a top 5 pick, but maybe they can find lightning in the bottle and find a Dak Prescott. I know they thought that was going to be Kellen Moore. I hope that's his name. Yeah, Kellen Moore. Is that his name?
Kellen Mond? You already forgot this
Kellen
soon?
Mond. Kellen Moore. I did.
Wiped it from his memory.
Moore.
It was not a good era.
I totally forgot it was Kellen Mond.
He signed with Cleveland, didn't he?
Yeah.
He signed with Cleveland.
Stefanski picked him up. Mm-hmm.
Maybe Stefanski turns into greatness or not.
Stab at Mike Zimmer right there and Rick Spielman. Hate to see it.
Yeah, I'll go with 3. I'll go Kirk Cousins is probably the only one left unless he doesn't want to sign for more money.
I just don't know what to make of Rodgers. I mean, Rodgers is the big wild card because he's signed beyond that, and he's going to be good enough, right? But he is kind of in this weird, it seems like in his personal life, he seems like he could walk away at any moment and just go pursue whatever pursuits he wants to pursue, whatever Aaron Rodgers might feel like he wants to do. I don't know. I don't know if I want to know what that is at this point, but
probably more ayahuasca.
Let's get in. Probably, yeah. His 40s are going to be a trip. Let's get into our final question. I want a letter grade on your team's first-year head coach so far. So for Courtney, that's Eberflus with the Bears, and for Ron, that's O'Connell with the Vikings. Courtney, we'll start with you.
I will give him a solid B- right now. And of course, the record itself does not stand for that. I'm not really factoring that into my grade all that much. What I'm factoring in is the way that he's gotten guys to buy into his culture. So he has this thing called the HITS principle: hustle, intensity, tough takeaways. Let's say toughness, takeaways, and playing smart. So it's technically hitipus, but like there's like the P is in parentheses. It's I just remember like asking guys about it. Jalen Johnson, who's a cornerback here. I remember really early in training camp or middle way through training camp, I said, okay, how do you, I mean, it's kind of gimmicky. It's a freaking acronym. And you guys are like, men making millions of dollars. And like, you don't, this is not college. And he's like, yeah, like 100%. It took me a while to buy in, and he believed it was corny at first too. But I think the way that Eberflus has truly gotten these guys to buy into, hey, this is how we turn a page into what we want to be. That's not something that's easy. And I think his approach, he thanks his coaches after every game. Like he's doing it differently, at least differently than the way I've seen it done in 7 years covering the NFL. So the results aren't there yet on the field, 2-2 and 2-2 by the way of a Roquan Smith interception that helped them beat Houston last week. There's a lot of on-field product that needs to be fixed. But from Eberflus's perspective, being a defensive coach that's very involved with the offense, he's sitting in quarterback meeting rooms all the time. I think you got to give the guy credit for at least like the buy-in and his try hard to make this thing work and get it off the ground in year one.
I'm going to go with a B for Kevin O'Connell, but since my kids are in school, I get to see their grades from their teachers. I'm going to add like the little comment box that gives them some extra bonus points. I'm giving them a B, but his bonus points are the culture. Like the fact that guys like Adam Thielen and all these guys are speaking up, saying like after a kicker misses a kick, like it's great to see a coach come over and be positive. After a loss, it's cool to see the coaches take responsibility for the loss and come alongside of us and say, hey, like, here's where we let you down. Here's where we didn't get Justin Jefferson involved. Here's where we didn't let the defense know what they should have been paying attention to. Like, I give them the bonus points for that. So it's still a B, but the bonus points are going to go into their overall grade at the end of the year because they're doing things culturally that the players love. And so from an offensive standpoint, I think he's doing just fine. Kirk Cousins is learning. From a defensive standpoint, Ed Donatel still has to get it figured out. So that's where the B comes in. But the bonus points for the culture change. Like the players are willing to say this in press conferences. So clearly it's a major change.
I get that.
Yeah, I think the temperament and the culture is definitely up there. I want to see the X's and O's get to that point as well. I think there's still room for that to improve. The consistency of the offense, finishing in the red zone, finishing on third down. They're 26th, I think, in the red zone, 28th on third down, maybe flip-flopped, but it's not great. So there's more that this offense can do, and they have the talent to do it. But I do think that culture has created an atmosphere where this team really fights for each other in the fourth quarter. That's part of the reason they're 3-1.
Well, that'll do it for today's show. Courtney Cronin clearly won because Sam likes to give her more points than me. But remember, when you subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota, you're getting endless Vikings talk with local experts. Subscribe to the free Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast feed, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure you download it on the Amazon app as well as the Roku app on your TVs or your tablets, whatever you use. And find our videos on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Thank you. Have a great day.